So I have said many, many, many times, I do not like the House of Lords. I find it a real, incredible uh, disappointment on our beloved British democracy, because it is a place where a lot of big decisions and a lot of changes in our democracy can even take place. And not a lot of people, unfortunately, care about it that much, even though that has increased over the past couple of years. And there is at least a drive to reform the House of Lords. I think it needs to become a lot more in the public conscious that the House of Lords needs to be completely gone and changed into what I've said before, a House of Representatives of regions. So each region gets, X amount of of people. It would all be sort of balanced out, so it's not unfair. So one region gets more than another, etc., etc. I think it all needs to be balanced out. And then you do that by proportional representation. So, I think that would massively change British democracy. I think it would be a massive change if we could get that through. Even if you don't change sort of the MP House of Commons voting system, I think reforming the House of Lords in that direction would be a massive, massive improvement and a massive change in British parliamentary democracy. But since Brexit and since 2016, I am quite pleased, very often found myself in a position of actually praising the House of Lords, because when it comes to discussing Brexit, it has seemed to be the only place where actual adult conversations and sensible conversations about Brexit have even been taking place. And this is just one such conversation that has gone on currently in the House of Lords to try and make sure that Northern Ireland doesn't go and start facing severe numbers of blackouts because of the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill, which is again currently in the House of Lords. And luckily, at this moment in time, it doesn't seem that too likely that this could pass. So, again, something that I am trying to keep a close eye on, but we'll see. But it doesn't seem likely at this point that it will pass, especially with the amount of amendments that Labour Lords in particular have put into this bill to try and sort of get rid of it. So, before we do go diving into this, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And of course, there is the one-off donation link called the YouTube thank you button down below, and of course the YouTube subscription called the Pony Club, where you can join that as well, and you get all sorts of bells and whistles and whatnot when you sign up and join to that as well. So onwards to today's little thing we've got for you. It comes from The Guardian, the title of Labour in bid to avert Northern Ireland power cuts as a result of Brexit legislation. A Labour peer is launching a bid to avert a fresh energy crisis with the potential for power cuts and drastic energy price rises in Northern Ireland as a result of proposed Brexit legislation. Peter Hain, the former Northern Ireland Secretary, will table an amendment to the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill in the House of Lords on Wednesday to protect the so-called Single Energy Market, or SEM, which allows power to be traded with the island of Ireland as one economic unit. He fears that if the bill were to become law across, and access to the SME would disappear, and that would disrupt Northern Ireland's energy supply. Such is the significance of the SME that 2 years ago, government officials feared that thousands of electricity generators and sites on barges would have to be sent to the Northern Ireland coast to try and maintain energy supplies in the event of a no-deal Brexit. Again, something else that we never heard about, of course, about this. I think this is something that we should have, I think, certainly heard a lot more about, the problems that Northern Ireland was really going to pose. Because remember, you had, Katie Hoey, who is herself now sits in the House of Lords, said that, Northern Ireland, not going to be a problem. What's the biggest problem in and around Brexit? Northern Ireland. And as we discussed yesterday, we almost had potentially a terrorist attack because of the Northern Ireland Protocol. So, yeah, it's Whew, yeah, it's a problem. So anyway, back to it. They wanted to say, it's our duty, not the EU's, to keep the lights on in Northern Ireland, he said. And Lord Hines said, if the EU decides to prevent the continued free flow of goods and electricity across the Irish border because of the removal of the Court of Justice for the European Union from the protocol, it would not be a sign of its malignment, but rather the well-flagged consequences of the wanton recklessness of the government in writing the bill this way. He is expected to tell peers in the House of Lords. The single energy market is seen as a triumph of cooperation between Northern Ireland and the Republic in the post-Troubles era. Whitehall papers leaked back in 2018 suggested the electricity bills could rise by over £200, and diesel generators would be needed to keep power supplies running, and energy companies could collapse. Haynes said that the impact of the Skeleton Protocol Bill going through the Lords involves the unknowable consequences because so much of its effect will come through powers that are neither clearly demarked or even spelled out. So that's how bad and how desperate this protocol bill was going through. But of course, we should probably know that because who birthed this idea, this protocol bill? Well, it was Liz Truss. It was Liz Truss who pushed through this bill, and we saw how disastrous her prime ministership was. Or should we expect anything less from this Northern Ireland Protocol bill? But back to it. He then added that he did not doubt that the continuing role for the European Court of Justice could be finalised to sustain the SME, but it should be negotiated outside this bill. Amending the bill to avoid such a situation in which the removal of the European Court of Justice jurisdiction could have unintended consequences for the operation of the single electricity market, which the government has been clear it wishes to keep fully functioning, we would at least need to ensure no disruption to energy supplies in Northern Ireland. And if it loses free access to the EU single market for goods, Han will say, and currently Labour is stepping up its campaign to halt the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill, to try for making it into the statute book intact, with a total of at least 22 amendments tabled just 10 days ago. Jeremy Chapman, the shadow minister in the Lords, told The Guardian the bill was an abomination and it was undermining the UK's hard-won reputation as a responsible, trustworthy partner, and called on the government to scrap this reckless legislation. So, will Rishi Sunak do this? Will he actually come forward and scrap this absolutely awful bill? I highly doubt it. Remember, he himself is an avid Brexiteer, has been one very much so since the start. But does he actually have the same appetite as other, shall we say, ultra Brexiteers, as Liz Truss eventually became? It's possible, but will he maintain it? Will he eventually get rid of it? Certainly, if he is seen to do that, he will lose a lot of Brexiteer support. But even if the Lords do end up basically amending this bill so it's just basically completely useless, and then the government just doesn't pass it, or it doesn't end up passing the House of Lords, it could just be yet another headache for Rishi Sunak that he does not need. Because, as we've said before, even though Rishi Sunak looks stable at the moment, I think he is literally a house of cards. And I think at any moment, if he were to just pull one away, or one group of MPs decides to pull their support away from Rishi Sunak, I think his entire government could come toppling down very, very fast. This is indeed a government built on quicksand, and things like this could very, very well become massive problems for Rishi Sunak. So, as always, we'll be keeping an eye on this and how it goes. But as always, to keep informed and up to date on this, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a more updates link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. And of course, we'll see you all next time.